So good morning, everybody. I'm happy to be here. I realize I do stand between you and lunch very shortly, and I have about 100 slides, so I'm going to go quickly. But I want to continue the discussion that you've heard from Wireless Car and you've heard from DreamWorks and Microsoft, and talk about the user experience. In 1729, Jonathan Swift wrote a satirical essay, and he talked about the idea that poor families should sell their children to be used as food for wealthy families in Ireland. Obviously, satire. But he used this to try to draw attention to some very important issues that were going on in that time. And in that spirit, I want to talk a little bit about some of the issues that I've noticed and experienced and dealt with over the past few years. So I'm going to talk about how I see some of the current issues in our industry. I'm going to talk about some of the motivations from the players in our industry. And I'm going to make some of my own modest proposals for how together we can move the connected car and infotainment space forward. We all know the challenge. You guys are living the challenge every day. We have the consumer world, we have the automotive world. They move at two different speeds. And the infotainment system and the user experience is the transmission between those speeds, right? We're trying to figure out how to synchronize those two very different life cycles and experiences. When I was at Chrysler, very often my day felt like this. We were very focused on building a product, we were very focused on building a team, but there are lots of voices within a large OEM or a large supplier, right? And top management and product planning and marketing and quality all have different voices, and they all have different expectations for an infotainment system and a user experience. So you guys are all living this challenge as well. As we look at the evolution of car infotainment, our lives are getting more and more complex, right? Two knobs and a radio is a pretty good user experience. Not a lot of content or not a lot of features, but it worked and customers knew how to use it. As systems got more complex and now software enters the picture, less hardware focused, more software focused, we've got new voices, we've got new developers, we've got new systems that need to be integrated. Now our lives become more complex from a development standpoint. Today, we may have an OEM as a system integrator or a large tier 1 as a system integrator, multiple tier 1s and tier 2s and tier 3s, supporting them with hardware and software and device integration. It's very complex and it's very challenging to create a real integrated user experience when we have this level of complexity. In the future, we look at the next gen, the next couple of generations of systems, it's only going to become more challenging. But we do have a couple of things going for us. We will have pervasive connectivity. If we figure out how to use that connectivity, that will solve a lot of these problems. And we do have emerging new players that are looking at how to integrate the HMI and create platforms which will support this development effort. But creating a unified, coherent, branded user experience for the OEMs remains a great challenge and a great opportunity for us. There's a lot of data out there that tells us that usability and functionality are going in different directions. The more features we together put in these cars, the less usability they have and the more problems our customers are having. We're all looking at millennials and young people that grew up with cell phones and tablets as our target audience. They're doing a lot of the debugging of our systems when they launch it. Their parents are struggling to pair their Bluetooth phones, quite honestly. And those are the people that are buying the cars. The new vehicle, average age of a new buyer is something like 51.8. I guess that's actually me. I can stumble my way around and I can get most of the functions to work, but a lot of my friends come to me and say, you know, can you help me pair my phone? Can you help me register for a service? There's a challenge out there, right? And with challenges come opportunities. So we have to look at these systems to increase the customer satisfaction of the vehicles. And that customer satisfaction is going the wrong way. J.D. Power, I think this is from a couple of years ago, but this data repeats itself that year over year, customers are finding more problems with the system and they're less satisfied with their systems. So I apologize for the language on this slide. This is what happens when you create a slide after telematics and tonics. late at night. But it's an important message, right? I've listened to the phone calls that have come in through the support centers, and if somebody is struggling to do a basic function like enter a POI or find their home that's not on their map or pair their phone, we have to be able to support them. And right now, quite honestly, we have a lot of pissed off customers. And how can we fix that, and how can we challenge this? So what do the customers want? Do they want new technology that changes every generation? I would suggest that they want something, a system and devices that are easy to use, of course safe. That goes without saying. They want to be able to trust their infotainment devices. I want to be able to trust my navigation system that's going to get me from A to B. And I really want my house to be in that infotainment system on that map. Personalized, contextual, learn my behaviors, understand what I like, and be more proactive in suggesting and recommending things to me. Social is emerging. It still pulls very low, but as these new millennials do come in, social features implemented in the correct way are going to be critically important to connect people to their friends and the families and the things that are important to them. So, another piece of data from SBD. Customers are struggling to complete even basic tasks. And if they can't get it the first or second time, you know what? They give up. And we still see people in high-end vehicles with embedded Bluetooth driving around holding their cell phones. It's out there every day. So, did we forget something? I would suggest to us all that we're selling features when we should be selling experiences. And I think you've heard this theme from Martin, and you've heard it from other people during the week, but it's important. One of the people that worked for me when I was at Chrysler came up with this image, and it stuck with me. The marketing people hated it, but from a development standpoint, I loved it. Simple, safe, and sexy, right? Safe. It has to be safe. It has to protect me. I have to have confidence in it. Simple enough for me to use on a daily basis and understand without opening up the owner's manual. But sexy is important because sexy helps sell cars. And we're going to talk about the motivations of the OEMs, but we should be helping our partners sell cars as well as we create these experiences. So we talked a little bit about the end user. What do the OEMs want? I would suggest that OEMs really are in the business of selling cars. They have telematics platforms and connected services platforms. They want to generate revenue from these platforms, but their main role has not changed. And the OEMs that I talk to are getting back to the basic idea that infotainment systems better help me sell cars. They want to service the car. They want to create revenue. They want to connect their dealers and their customers. And the brands want to sell a new car at the appropriate point. They want to keep you locked in to that brand family, right? So if we're going to provide infotainment systems, whether it's features and content, services, experiences, they should support this mission. You guys know very well that infotainment systems are impacting purchaser buying decisions every day. So this is real. People are getting in those cars. They're talking to their friends. They're looking at blogs. They're listening, right? And we have to get this right. The OEMs have to get it right, and we as partners of the OEMs have to get it right. So a little bit more detail. What do the OEMs want? Well, I think they want a differentiated user experience. We're going to talk about Apple and Google and other new players coming into this space, and they're welcomed by the users, but the OEMs may have different motivations. They have their own brand DNA. They want to protect the customer data. They want to monetize the customer data. I think Martin made a great point about the value of connected services accruing to the enterprise, to the company. So I'm going to talk about how we can change some of these business models. So the OEMs have to create broad product offerings, built-in technologies, brought-in technologies. They have to cover the market, but they have to maintain their own DNA and their own brand presence. If they surrender that, they risk commoditizing their vehicle. So as suppliers, what do we want? We want to get paid, there's no doubt. But what we really want to do is work with the OEMs to help develop these experiences and help develop these relationships. To me, the most important thing that I tell my team is we have to create partnerships with the OEMs. Less transactional, but deeper integration. We have to understand the OEM's problems and their motivations. Then we can create the products and services and experiences that really resonate with the customers and will create long-lasting business opportunities. So, where can we go from here? Let's look into the future a little bit. If we think about some of the traditional themes that we've talked about at this conference and in other places, we've always talked about location-based services, safety and security, entertainment, and apps, right? More disruptive in the future, things are going to change. We're going to talk about situationally aware, contextual, personalized, social security, right? Help me understand what's happening to my family and my friends around me. And we're going to get more predictive with the data that's coming off the cars. And we're going to create experiences rather than segregated apps inside the vehicle. So the OEMs have some important choices to make in this as well. They have to decide who and how to partner with as they go forward. Apple and Google, Microsoft, consumer-facing companies are very exciting and bring a lot of value. There are also the more traditional trusted OEM tiered partners that live and die by the revenue and the partnerships that they create with the OEMs. Not surprisingly, NNG is going to get in the middle here, right? We have one foot in the consumer world. We have a long-standing relationships with the OEMs. I'm sure you guys want to do the same thing. But the OEMs have to decide who do they trust and understand the motivations of each supplier so they can create the experiences and create the value at the end. So, not surprisingly, we see embedded systems as core to creating this brand DNA. We see kind of a triple stack, triple play. I think you guys have heard about this. You're living this right now. Google and Apple will come in. Their devices will be integrated, but they will never be integrated as deeply as an embedded navigation and infotainment system. And again, the motivation of the OEMs to control the data that's coming off these vehicles and not allow Google and Apple to intermediate themselves between their customer and their brand will continue to force the development and integration of these embedded systems. We call that the core driving experience. We think there are lots of apps and lots of experiences that are going to come around to support different things in the vehicle. But when we think about navigation, when we think about location-based services, when we think about traffic, those things are core to the driving experience. And each OEM is going to have a view and a process to bring that to their customers, that it will be absolutely proprietary versus an open, some of the open implementations with Apple and Google. I saw this comment a couple weeks ago. I thought it was interesting. There's a lot of focus in technology and a lot of value being created around this interface layer of how your product interacts with a customer. There's a couple of examples here, but I think one of the most interesting is Uber, a company that has a huge valuation that actually dwarfs some of our own companies, but they don't have any assets, right? They have a very simple product, which is basically connecting customers to cars and drivers. But they own that experience, and they've created an incredible amount of value by building a valuable experience, but controlling that experience on the device. It's an interesting point. So let's start creating experiences and not just applications. Let's present information that's relevant to the consumer when they want it, right? And not make them push some buttons to get it. We're all working on that. That's coming. This is one of my big takeaways from the conference this week is, for me, apps in the cars are a stepping stone. It's a natural first step. I'm not convinced that the smartphone is the right user experience to emulate inside the vehicle. Let's see. But certainly using the smartphone or using embedded connectivity to bring in some of those experiences, make them more relevant, contextual, personalized. Customers will see value for that if we can make it happen in a meaningful way. I think we need to bring in new voices to the development process. There are lots of new companies coming into this space, but we need to listen to a broader range of ages, a broader range of demographics. We need to talk to our customers. And I would challenge you guys in this room, when is the last time you talked to an end user of your product? I'm challenging my own team to do that. At NNG, we're doing a lot of focus testing. As we bring out new products, we're trying to see if they resonate with people. But it takes time, right? It takes time and resources. But if we don't get these voices in early enough to the process, we're going to miss the target when these products hit the market. We've got to fix the development process, and this is an OEM issue, and it's a Tier 1 issue, and it's an issue with my company. Lots of voices early on, right? Lots of different opinions about what needs to happen, but it's still a very fragmented development process, and we talked about the complexity that's coming into the vehicles. We've got to create a way to discuss this and create these experiences and get all these voices in early so we're not continuously redeveloping and fixing bugs after these systems launch. This is a big issue, and it's happening in fits and starts, but infotainment moves at a much faster clock speed than the rest of the automotive world, than the rest of the vehicle development world, and I think we're just starting to figure out how to address that. Experiences again. A lot of the design work gets done, features get implemented because the other guys have it, and we all get emails, oh my God, my product doesn't have this feature, put it in. You know, you get an email from the boss, right? But if those design features aren't integrated into the overall user experience and are just tacked on or added on because somebody else has it, guess what? The customers will work around it or they won't use it. I think we've all seen that. The business model needs to change for infotainment, for connected services. I use this example of a Trojan horse because if we get some sexy features that the customers will like and they'll sign up for, you can then monetize that customer within the OEM enterprise. Warranty avoidance, recall avoidance, firmware over-the-air updates, connecting your customer to your brand, connecting your customer to the dealer. All those things have huge potential value to the OEM, but if we continue to ask customers to pay $25 or $30 a month for services that they're not using, we're failing. We've got to figure out, we've got to turn this 180 degrees, we've got to figure out ways to subsidize and incentivize customers to use connected services so they get the value on the front end, but that value accrues to the business, to the OEMs on the back end. I'm seeing glimpses of this, but this is going to be the next big thing that will flip the switch for connected services. One final comment, or actually two final comments. You guys in this room are the wizards. You understand the technology, you're building the technology, you're developing these experiences, but there are a lot of non-magical people out there, if you've seen Harry Potter, if you've read Harry Potter, right? Let's not forget about the non-magical people as we develop these systems, and let's talk to them to see if they really understand what we're trying to do here. So NNG is outside. I'd love to continue the discussion with you about how we're trying to help solve some of these problems. Contact me on LinkedIn, come see me. Just the beginning of the discussion. So thank you for your time today.